Welcome everyone to another episode. Today we have a Mr. George Brooks all the way from US. So George Brooks is a well-respected thought leader, innovator, and entrepreneur. So a global business leader with deep training in mindfulness, cognitive-based compassion training. He's known for his ability to unleash human power to improve execution of strategies, inspiring employees, improve customer happiness, and reinforce connectivity to the community and environment well-being. So in this episode, we're going to learn more about Mr. George Brooks. Also, we're going to be turning our topic, which is going to be anxiety at work, is like performing tasks, your bosses, your teammates, as well as like if you're working for yourself as a client, customer, all of them stuff, and being relative in the industry is like how AI and everything is like affecting businesses, how you can build a resilience around that, also how to you be future proof as well for yourself, so how to solve your workplace problems. So we're going to touch base all that. So without further ado, let's welcome Mr. George to the show. Mr. George, welcome to the show, and how are you doing today?
Yeah. Hi, how are you? Thank you for that great intro. I feel like I want to talk with him.
Yeah, you achieved a lot of stuff. Like obviously, we can go for like another couple of minutes, like introduce you. Like obviously, I want to so people knows you about from you about your journey, your story. We're just going to touch base on the very beginning of it, and then we can get to the topic, the anxiety and the stress related to work and stuff like that. So tell us about your background, like how you come across with this kind of work you are doing, helping people with their anxiety, the cognitive work you've been doing. How did you get introduced to this industry?
Yeah, sure. So by training, I was a lawyer and a certified public accountant and worked for a firm EY, Ernst& Young. My last role was a global leader in the people advisory practice of that firm. So it's a very large international professional services firm. And I had many different roles. One of them was helping people through mergers and acquisitions, but also any people part of business transformation. And so, I helped clients, but what got me to this space we're to talk about today was about helping my teammates, my peers. We had a great team. The practice was successful because of this great team. I was truly enamored and grateful that so many people joined our practice from the outside. But when they came and they had to serve clients, I was there as a coach,
Yeah.
and I witnessed, them, people suffering. I call it being in the gerbil wheel, always running, always trying. And simultaneously, I was studying mindfulness and meditation, and eventually studied compassion training. And I started using those techniques with my colleagues, and that's how this all started. And at the end of the day, I've retired from that, but I think my mantra is it doesn't have to be that way. We don't need to be anxious at work. And that's why I'm here today. It's simply to help people find a new way and a new path.
Yeah. Very interesting. And obviously, the more and more is days going by, like we seeing the anxiety is like increasing because the uncertainty in the marketplace, uncertainty about like jobs, the businesses going that way. Also, we just like recovered from like COVID not long ago, like less than 5 years, and people had to adapt really, really fast. Their businesses been changed, the job has been changed. People figure out like a different ways, like making money as well. So obviously, you in the space, you working with your lot of clients in the space and the going from like anxiety. So what is the most effective side or like area you would say like people get more stressed out? Is that because the job they don't like, or is the boss, the people, or is that from
Yeah,
like a business owner side?
it's all the above. And we could take them categorically, I think. But you said something is uncertainty, right?
Mm,
And uncertainty for humans triggers our amygdala. Because our amygdala, that prehistoric part of our brain, the reptilian part of the brain, is scanning, right, to
Yeah.
protect us. And that scanning, that uncertainty is fear. And when that fear triggers, our amygdala takes over, and we have automatic responses, meaning we're not using the cortex or thinking part of our brain. We're just reacting and responding, fight, flight, freeze, which
Yeah.
is the opposite. Fight, flight, freeze is the opposite of being adaptable.
Mm.
And so one of the first things I would do, whatever it was bringing uncertainty, whether it's possible job loss or a new boss coming in or a merger or a new business strategy, all that brought uncertainty, right?
Yeah.
And with that, we can't, those aren't things we control, but we can control our own mindset. And so I found that the only way that we can get out of this, it's always a two-step. Step one is to calm the amygdala, and that is how I found meditation is so important. It activates our parasympathetic nervous system,
Mm.
and that's the only way to calm the amygdala. And
Right.
so it could be box breathing, it could just be taking a pause, thinking of a moment of kindness, that thinking about a great place in nature, focusing on your breath and doing some box. Anything you can do to just calm that amygdala, I think, was step one, no matter what the trigger was.
Yeah. So mostly like we triggering like we being on the flight zone fight mode and we just going by process like without like thinking properly like what is the situation is because we just like responding rather than just taking a pause and thinking about like what is the real problem is. And because when someone is going through a problem, could be our friends or family, we give them some kind of direction or advice in a calm manner, but when it's come down to us, like we don't know what to do. We just like freeze and we just respond to the situation in a way like we wouldn't advise to our friends or family members. So what is the main case like when something happens, like for an example, we have a deadline or probably it didn't go as expected, or uncertainty like you lost a job, now applying for a different job, but when a calm situation you apply for like a better job, or like you have like a prepare better way. And someone is going through the process or some kind of businesses you are in and you're verge of bankruptcy, or like you're struggling to pay your staff or expenses, and now you are responding to the situation rather than the proper planning. So what should someone do? And I know like you mentioned about meditation. Alongside that, like in the same present moment, like someone is in a situation and they have to do immediately something. There is no time for them to meditation or any of that. Like how do they talk to themselves?
Yeah. So very, very good tee up there. So it's a two-step. So step one, it could just be a deep breath. I'm okay. Right. And it's not meditating, but it's a form of meditating. It's just deep breath. I'm okay. Settling down from the diaphragm, right? Just I actually feel calmer now just doing that. But the second step, like you said, we don't think properly, right? So there's
Yeah.
two steps. One is to get out of the amygdala hijack so I can think. And then second, when I get into the thinking part of our brain, believe it or not, it's kind of crazy, but our default responses or our subconscious, which drives 97% of our day, right, is not wired for us to do the proper thing. We don't think properly. It's crazy, but the way our brains have been formulated since prehistoric times to now, right? We are biologically predisposed to do the opposite things we should be doing. So
Mm.
my two step is calm down, and then let's just take some of the examples. Deadlines missed, right?
Yeah.
Big one. That's a twofer. First, the boss probably created an unrealistic deadline. In technology, in the like aerospace and self-defense in the US government, 99% of the deadlines were missed because they're overly ambitious, right?
Mm.
So, bosses have our subconscious has an optimism bias and other biases that kick in. We're not thinking properly, and we think things can get done quicker, sooner than they can. And so, or sometimes people are just trying to impress a client or win a job. And so, the big tension is to create an unrealistic deadline. So, right there, I would say pause, take a step back, get some other people to give input, kick the tires, do a reality test. Am I, falling into this subconscious bias of unrealistic deadlines? And then now take the person given the deadline.
Mm.
If we don't think properly, now we're freaking out. We got a deadline. We're not going to make it. Amygdala's going, probably not productive. Calm down. Do I talk to the boss about missing the deadline? Our subconscious response is fight, flight, freeze. We are not going to talk about it. Our mind
Right.
is going to say, be quiet, head down. The minute you open your mouth, you're admitting you're no good. And that's wrong thinking. That's not proper thinking. We really need to open up. Matter of fact, I'm sure the boss would appreciate it. The client would appreciate it. Everyone would do better by speaking up. So again, I'm saying is do the opposite and do the right thing. So what I found is in any of these situations at work where these triggers of missing a deadline, or even like another one, a coworker goes around you behind your back to your boss. You know,
Yeah.
our immediate response is fight, flight, freeze, emotions, right? Calm
Yeah.
down. What am I going to do? I know what I'm going to do. My subconscious and my biases are going to say, protect yourself, get back at the person, make sure your boss knows they're wrong and I'm right. And that's even before you even know that the meeting even happened, right? It's
Right.
kind of crazy. And so, again, to think properly, it's the opposite of what your subconscious is going to tell you. Obviously, the right thing to do is to check in with the boss, see if it happened, why it happened. It must be something, so difficult for that person for them to bypass you. Agree with the boss on the next steps. Most likely have a conversation with the person, iron it out, and then, be open and forgiving, and setting up an understanding that no matter what it is, they can come see you. So yeah, I think if you follow your subconscious or you stay in the amygdala hijack, that's a definition of anxiety. You
Yeah.
take two step, you get out of it, and you get to better decisions, better behaviors, and better emotions. So my broad category, I'm just calling this emotional regulation at work. And that's how you regulate your emotions is by doing what we're saying.
Mm. Yeah. And a lot of time I see like as a business owners, because majority of our listeners are like owning small to medium sized business owners. And I used to do myself like having unrealistic like goals for my business, like we're going to hit half a million, $1 million dollars in revenue. And it just like I was starting out, obviously we wouldn't hit that goal because there was no structure, there is no plan, and there is no formula. And even though we did have like the goal was so bare, like when you're making $100,000 a year and you're shooting for like a $1 million dollars for the within 12 months, which is like a very very ambitious, and you get disappointed and create like a stress, and every month you just like working of like how I'm going to make the sale or how am I going to do this stuff. And now people have that this tendency as well on their businesses. They have them kind of big goals, big dreams, seeing other people on social media, they achieving big goals, and now I have to do my goals are 10x bigger. Also, like I need to have millions of followers on my social media. Why is it not growing? Then having them kind of bigger expectation, and that actually like making people are more stressful. So how do we control that, and how we still be ambitious as well as like be realistic as well?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you're just nailing it. All the right issues. So on goals and sales, yeah. So I'll give two examples of possible things that happen there. One is unrealistic goals, right?
Mhm.
And maybe they are. I was part of an organization. I got unrealistic goals, and I even delivered on unrealistic goals, and we cascaded it down. And even more crazy, sometimes when we met those unrealistic goals, they said, well, I guess they weren't big enough, right? So
Yeah.
it's but any event, I think there's culturally some cultures tie your self-esteem to your achievement. So, how did you do? Did you win that job? Did you win this sporting match? Did you get good grades in school? Were you on the honor roll? Achievement, achievement, achievement is self-esteem, and there's like a correlation that I have high self-esteem by achieving goals and low self-esteem by not achieving goals. And that's the first one I think you need to break down.
Hmm.
Again, that's our subconscious because the bottom line is you are more than your sales goal tracker. You are more as a person than your pipeline. There's many things
Yeah.
you can't control in sales. Maybe the client, is the wrong time. Maybe it wasn't the right solution. They didn't have the budget. There's so many other things that can happen, right?
Yeah.
And has nothing to do with you as a person. Scotty Scheffler was the number one world golfer, rated number one, and his wife has a quote out there saying, "Scotty, you're an incredible man and you're blessed. You are much more than your golf score.
Mm.
I
Uh-huh.
don't care if you ever win another tournament. You're a great human being." And that's the kind of like attitude you have to have going into this. I'm not going to let that goal determine my self-esteem. And it's not going to become the yo-yo, meaning, yeah, I can get high by it, but don't go low if you miss it, right?
Yeah.
Um, Two other things happen with those goals. And this is, I was fascinated by this. It's called anticipatory anxiety, meaning if we do nothing, our subconscious brain is going to anticipate that we're going to fail or anticipate that we'll be rejected in the sales process. And the very fact your brain exists in the subconscious way to protect you, it will cause you to have procrastination in taking the steps you're supposed to take throughout the sales processes, whether it's following up with people, reaching out, cold calling, or anything.
Mm.
And so yeah, think about that. It's crazy that your brain is thinking ahead and that you don't even know this is happening. You can say, and if you find yourself procrastinating or reluctant, meaning, procrastinate means I'll get to it, I'll fill in and I'll do more research, I'll study more, I'll do more background checks, more Google searches, more LinkedIn, more, and you're never getting to it. But
Yeah.
reluctance means I don't even want to do it, all right, at all. I'm uncomfortable. So that anticipatory anxiety, if you can uncover that, and the antidote to that is, in all of this, I think, is failure is like what Einstein said, or not Einstein, Edison. I learned another way not to make a light bulb, right? You just learn another way, either not to do it or finding out a better way to do it. It's progress in some way, shape, or form if you take a learning experience from that and have that attitude to go, because eventually something good will stick and happen. But having that as I'm learning, I'm progressing, and this is still beneficial, even though this one particular thing didn't work. So it's a mindset shift.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the thing. Like I talk to so many of them individual in the space. Also, people I see around me, the peer colleagues and the people have like businesses similar as me, like always ambitious. Like I get that. Like obviously you have to be, and in the same time, like there is continuously what's the next thing, what's the next thing, and what's the next thing is just like going through their mind, even though they achieve that they have millions of dollars in the bank, but in the same time, like in the zone, like they cannot be present with their family, their children, as well as even though for themselves, like even though they go for a vacation or like watching a TV, for an example, the mind is continuously racing. How can I hit this, or how can I do more and achieve more? So how, what is the a solution for like when you have the ambition, I get that this is your work and your business, you want to grow it, take it to the next level. On the same time, other than business or other than your profession, whatever could be your golfing or you're playing tennis or you're a rugby player, whatever that may be, when you are not on the field, when not in the office, like how to disconnect and still be with the people, love and care, and also for yourself, because without taking care of yourself, like there is no going to be any calmness, or we cannot do the meditation and the method you have mentioned.
Yeah, so I think it's the key to all this is being aware, right? We need to be
Mm,
aware I'm triggered. We need to be aware, in fight, flight, freeze mode. We need to be aware that there's a possibility, in this instance of, an improper deadline or, my self-esteem is being triggered by achievement, whatever. It's being aware. I think that's one thing. So, when you're in the situation you just described, I think being aware that, okay, this is happening, right? And then there's techniques to use to shut off the work, right?
yeah,
And or re-engage. And, for that one, it's called, I would take the technique of attention deployment, meaning, consciously make the decision to divert your attention to the people you're with and just become fully absorbed with it. Your mind can only do one thing at a time. It
mm,
can't have multiple thoughts. So it's either thinking about work or simply give your full attention to who's in front of you, whether it's your, like you said, your children, your wife, your spouse, your partner, whatever. Um, and by the way, the greatest gift you can give to a person is your full, undivided, mindful attention. Just think about that. Phones down, eyes locked on, computer screen shut down, just totally focus in, you know, hear what they're saying, understand what they're saying, try to feel what they're feeling and telling you. And if they're sharing, something, that is causing them distress, activating some sense of care to or urge to help them. And maybe you're helping them just by listening.
yeah,
So if you do what I just said, I guarantee that redeployment will calm you down. Not meditating, just attention redeployment. Now, now when I'm sleeping, now it's a different kind of thing. That mind is racing, and you're not deploying your attention because everyone else is sleeping. I think there's another technique called self-witnessing. And you can do attention deployment, which are all those apps, you listen to whatever meditations or music and that. But if you're not having an app or anything going, self-witnessing, and this is very powerful too, is to just let those, because your brain is processing and it's finishing up the day's work probably till 3:30 in the morning, 3 a.m. And many times I'll wake up and I'll actually see my brain processing. And it's just hundreds of thoughts are going through my head. And I don't judge it. I don't get absorbed by it. I don't feel like, oh crap, I blew that one today, or I should have got to this as those thoughts are flying. Just witness it in a non-judgmental way. And so when you stand back, detach from it, the movie's going, and it's like the audio's off, the emotions are off, and let it flow. And that is a very powerful technique to eventually calm down and let it go.
yeah. Then thank you for sharing that. So with yourself, like when you was working in a job, like or even though your business, like what was your strategies for like having the balance between work and your personal life? What was like your ritual? How did you disconnect?
Yeah, well, first thing that came to my mind is probably the biggest challenge, I had was interpersonal conflict. So it there is when you have hundreds and thousands of people working with you as your teammates and hundreds of leaders, somebody's always thinking of something differently than you are.
Mm,
And sometimes people even, like I said, going behind your back, whatever. And I practiced loving kindness. And this was so powerful. So there's a loving kindness meditation, giving loving kindness to yourself, to your loved ones, to people in the world. But, there's giving loving kindness to people that you aren't getting along with or you have a difference of opinion. And you picture them as being in the bear trap and they're flailing and they're hurting and they're thrashing. And there's a reason why, they're there at that point, and you just want to wish them care and kindness and loving kindness, for them to get through that. And believe it, that helped me so much to, just help me manage through that person's, differences with me in the way that they might have been acting or acting out. Yeah, that was the start of everything we're talking about, because
Hmm.
I was teaching meditation, and I said, well, I'm going to try that. Like, I'm not going to redirect or self-witness, but I extended loving kindness, and that seemed to work. And then I kept unpacking what's happening in our brains when all these triggers happen at work, and then came up with all these solutions. But balancing work, yeah, that one I can't say I was a great flag bearer. I was a leader. I was on call, escalations, 7 days a week around the year. When the firm closed down for a week, that was great because the whole country closed down. So it meant everyone's shut down.
Yeah.
When you take a vacation, there's still 389,000 other people that are still working. So, you know,
Hmm.
um, I think the thing was, for me, uh, I can't say there was a balance, but when I was with family, I did know about mindfulness and mindful listening, and to the extent I was able to shut that computer screen down and to be fully present. I think that would have been my balance. Is just practicing being fully present, when I had that opportunity, to be with loved ones.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing. So we are nearly coming to end of this podcast. So before we finish here, I have a one last question for you. So those who's listening and those who are struggling with their work anxiety and they want to do something about it, if you want to give them like a one tips they can take on and start implementing from today or tomorrow.
Yeah, on my website, I have a saying: renew your mind and the best will follow. And I think anxiety is something we control. Many people think it's done to you. Stress is done to you, but anxiety you do to yourself. It's something your mind creates, and it's something that only you can get out of it. And I think practicing these techniques of calming your amygdala and then pausing and thinking properly, and using these techniques to respond in a way that'll bring about a more desired behavior and emotional response. I think that would be my tip. It's a two-step, and our brain, and if it's work related, I do believe our brains, our subconscious, our default responses are not wired for today's workplace, where we're supposed to be collaborative, empathetic, innovative, and agile and embracing change. Our brain resists change. Our brain, is trying to preserve us from, being harmed, and it's doing the opposite. And I think just realize that if you're just going to operate on autopilot responses and biases aren't going to help you. You need to pause, think about it, and choose a more beneficial path forward.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing and giving that advice to our listeners. I really appreciate it, George. So we are finishing here. So before we wrap up, if anyone wants to learn more about yourself, your business, where is the best place to find you?
Yeah, so it's Simpatico, Simpatico, simpaticoadvisory.com. And then the website, there's free modules. Everything we talked about is on there. There's practices for you to do. It's self-initiated learning, micro learning sessions, 10 minutes on these issues we're talking about, and it'll guide you to a great turnaround.
All right, that's great. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you coming to the show and sharing your valuable insight and giving our listeners some advice as well. So I wish you very best of luck with everything you do and thank you.
Yeah, and thank you. It was great to be here.
It was my pleasure. Thank you. So that's a wrap, guys. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast episode with Mr. George Brooks. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. So if anyone wants to learn more about him, you can visit his website. I'm going to put the link on the description for you to get to him easily. Till then, I'll talk to you in the next episode. So take care.